Welcome to Seeing with Your Soul, the podcast aimed to inspire you to find your voice and become the best, truest, and most authentic version of yourself. Spiritually intimate soul-to-soul conversations, life-changing insights, and spiritual teaching and healing. Real, raw, unfiltered. Join your host, Tisha Michelle.
Welcome and welcome back to another episode of Seeing with Your Soul with me, your host, Tisha Michelle. What's up, everybody? I'm in such a great mood, right? So we're going to jump into this gratitude. What am I grateful for in this present moment? I'm definitely grateful that I took that leap of faith almost 2 years ago and moved to Arizona. So after the retreat, I've been spending like every day going to like this park and different parts of the park and just sitting out there, with my book or my notebook or just being, you know what I mean? And I remember yesterday saying, this is my life. This is where I live. I have beautiful views of, palm trees, the mountains, water. Yes, we do have some water in Arizona. It's a nice park that has this really, really, really big water area, and it has the ducks and stuff. And like, I don't have to drive far. I don't have to go far. It's like right up the street from my house. And, so I'm just really grateful that for a lot of reasons, but that I took that leap. But, that one in particular right now, because I replenish my energy by being in the sun. So being able to just be in the sun or just sit by the water and I don't have to like travel far to do it it's a blessing. I was talking with a couple of the ladies from the retreat like throughout, and we just kept making jokes and saying like, how could you be angry here? How could you be mad? Like you walking out the house or you driving in the car mad, but all you see is palm trees and sun and mountains. Like, what? Like, your view is dope. You're like, wait, what am I tripping about? But it's just something about the energy here that just, they can just shift a lot of, how it is that you're feeling. So in this present moment, that's what I'm grateful for. Your turn. Y'all already know the deal, unless it's your first time listening, and welcome again. Unless you're driving, I want you guys to go ahead and close your eyes. And let's get a little centered. So now I want you to take a nice deep breath. And I just want you to breathe in through your nose. And out through your mouth. All right, another one, a nice deep breath, breathing in through your nose. And out through your mouth. All right, last one. Another nice deep breath, breathing in through your nose. And out through your mouth. Yes, we feel good. Then you feel some of that tension, your neck and your shoulders a little tight over there. But just taking the time to take those nice, deep breaths, just release some of that energy, that you were holding on to that no longer serves you, and just makes you feel like, ah. And remember, that is something quick you can do, and that is something free that you can do that can help to shift your energy and to just remind you that you are alive, you are safe, you are protected, you are great, right? Always remember to bring yourself back to that. All right, so in this present moment, what are you guys grateful for? Express that gratitude. What are you grateful for? Yeah, all right. So, in today's episode of Seeing with Your Soul, I got to have a conversation that was much needed with Kerri Hummingbird. So Kerri is a soul guide and the host of the Soul Nectar Show and #1 international best-selling author of The Second Wave, Transcending the Human Drama, and the award-winning best-selling book Awakening to Me, One Woman's Journey to Self-Love, which describes the early years of her spiritual awakening. Kerri inspires people to lead their lives wide awake with an authenticity, passion, and purpose that positively impacts others. Her newest book, already a #1 international bestseller, is called Love is Fierce, Healing the Mother Wound, and describes the most direct path to spiritual enlightenment. So a few months back, I recorded a podcast talking about the father wound. And of course, I shared my personal experience and story around the father wound. And I got a lot of people that sent me messages about that and was sharing, which thank you guys, was sharing some of their personal things and saying how they could so relate to it and that it was such a powerful episode for them and being able to, start the process of seeing things differently so they're not holding on to so much around that father wound. And I thought that was cool. And then I started getting messages saying, hey, when are you going to do an episode on the mother wound? Wait, what? Me acts like I don't even see it. But I was getting so many people, right, that were saying this to me. And I was like, soon, right? And I mean, I don't really think I was lying. I think I was just avoiding. And I was really thinking that, well, the reason why it was making me a little uncomfortable when they were asking for that is because I'm still in that mother wound, right? See, it was a little bit easier on the father wound because my dad passed away and I don't have to talk to him all the time or, anything in that sense. So it was a little easier, to be honest. And as far as like that mother wound, it's like you want to share your story and you want to express that. But then there's that part of you that's like, am I going to offend her? How's that going to make her feel? Right. So you just kind of get into that. And then you get into that thing where I talk about like you bypass. Right. I'm talking about like, don't do that shit. There was that avoidance that was in there. And then it was interesting because Kerri came, we crossed paths and I was like, wait, this is like her lane. This is her thing, the mother wound. I was like, oh, okay, spirit. I hear you. I see. You're like, you need this. And so does your listeners. So we hopped on a Zoom just to kind of get a feel for each other and just see like how we vibe and how we connect. And of course we vibed and connected because spirit wouldn't have put us in each other's paths. Right. So I felt like it made all the sense in the world. Instead of me avoiding doing this episode and talking about the mother wound, why don't I just bring somebody else in? So in that moment, I can become the student, right? I can become the student and I can allow someone to pour into me and let me receive some guidance and some aha moments myself while I'm also sharing with you guys. So, I really hope you guys enjoy the Mother Wound episode with Kerri Hummingbird.
So welcome. All right. So before we get started, I always ask everybody the same question. This is the only question that I ask everybody the exact same. In this present moment, what would you say that you're grateful for?
I am so grateful for the sacred door that opened up for me in my life and led me out of a place of a lot of daily suffering and into a more expanded space where I can understand my life's experiences from what I call the soul perspective. And there's just so much more beauty from this place in my life than before.
I love that. Yes, I found myself, really giving that gratitude the other day. I hosted my first retreat. So, I'm still, on that high. But I really was just like talking to like spirit and stuff. And I was just really like, thank you, because when I was first given to me and it dropped in, I didn't see it. And I'm such a person like, let's take action right then and there. And so that was a little hard for me because I was like, yeah, I don't see it. Nope, I'm not going to do it. But, as things just started like going along and still dropping in and stuff, I was like, wow, I'm really, really grateful to be like in this space and that, all these people wanted to come to this retreat, the bonds that were made, just like that deep level connection. One person posted, because we have a group, one person posted in the group that it was a picture that she took with one of the ladies and she was like, my spirit animal in human form. And she was like, So, so I get it with just like those doors opening and just being in that place. It's just like all you can do. People were like, oh, it's like, how is it? How was it? I was like, it's more of a feeling. It's just more of a feeling. And you're just like, thank you. Just being grateful. So thank you for sharing that with me. All right. So we're going to talk about this mother wound thingamajig, right? So we're going to get right into it. So I recorded an episode and it was the father wound, right? So I definitely have that father wound. And my dad passed away when I was 16 and I wasn't back in his life until first connected until 14. So we had like 2 years together and they weren't the best. Because he was trying to control me in a sense. And I'm like, dude, who are you? Like, you ain't gonna tell me what to do. I do whatever I want to do, that type of thing. So that played a big part in my life. And I didn't really realize that until I just turned 41 until I was in my 30s. And I was like, wow. I was like, I do have those dad issues. They just don't look like what the world said that it should look like. So it was something to really work through. I do believe it was a little bit easier because he's passed away. And now he's like as a spirit guide. So it's a whole different thing. So I did that on the father wound. And I was getting a lot of people were sending me messages about it and stuff like, oh my God, thank you so much. This was great. Yes, I definitely have this, blah, 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 blah. Then I started getting people sending me messages saying, so when are you going to do the mother wound? I was like, ooh, trigger alert.
Trigger alert.
Trigger alert. And I haven't done it. And I know I haven't done it because I'm still in it and my mom's alive, and it's, there's a part of you, part of me that's like, is this going to offend her? How is that going to make her feel? And I have to keep bringing it back to me. So, but I still didn't do it. And then when you came across like my path, I was like, okay, spirit, I hear you. Let me take the back seat on this one, right? Let me let somebody else come in that's been through it. And this is what they teach. And this is what they're writing a book on and doing all that. And let me take that back seat instead of being the teacher and stuff. Let me be the student. So I'm going to be working through it and learning with my listeners. So it was literally perfect timing. And then I just kind of laugh a little bit. I'm like, okay, spirit, I get it.
Yeah, it's not an easy topic. I mean, it's all wrapped up in exactly what you talked about. It's like loyalty, guilt, it's hard to be honest with ourselves about how we feel when we're so concerned about the effect it might have on our mother, to express ourselves, to express what's really going on for us and to explore it. And so it's one of those taboo topics that you're supposed to just say, well, my mom did the best she could and whatever happened to me, I'll just go deal with that privately, And it's one of those things that we culturally don't like to talk about because of this loyalty to our mothers, which is really apropos. I mean, the loyalty we feel towards our mothers, I think, is really imbued with a deep sense of understanding about how our mothers have been treated through centuries. Women have been really mistreated for centuries on the planet. And so when we talk about having some loyalty and innate loyalty to our mothers, it's a lot about that. It's a recognition of there's deep ancestral healing needing to be done for women in general. And since we all come from a mother, then we all are aware of this mother wound. We're all aware of it because we're all coming from a mother's womb, our initial development that set the framework for how we perceive life, how we think about life happens in the womb when we're just being created. Our entire cellular structure is being formed inside of a woman who has had certain life experiences and certain beliefs about herself and certain ideas about life, and also has inherited her ancestral inheritance on identity and ideas about life and things like that. So when you're a tiny little baby forming, you're absorbing all that. You're just becoming a person through that lens, through that paradigm that you're receiving from your mother. And of course, then they've proven that babies are very attentive inside the womb and that they're actually learning the whole time. So they're in the womb, but they're listening to what's happening outside the womb too. And what's not really talked about is that they're listening to the mother. So you can't be inside somebody and not hear their thoughts. Like you can't be inside somebody and not feel their feelings. So every baby inside its mother is feeling her thoughts, her feelings, and her surroundings. And that's by design. That whole system is so that when the baby emerges from the womb, when the baby emerges from the mother, the baby has a sense of the world he or she is being born into. And so it's not a problem that happens. It's just to explain that all of us have inherited the mother wound because women have been treated pretty poorly for thousands of years now. So we can't not have inherited it because we were born inside our mothers.
Very interesting. So I've, definitely had done some like research or kind of was like led there where it's saying, even maybe some podcasts where it's like, if you really, maybe you have like high strung with like anxiety and stuff and all, and they say like a good starting space, a starting spot is to go talk to your mom and say, well, what was it like when you were pregnant with me? Like what type of, headspace were you in? And one of my friends was like, when we were talking about it, so she's like, wow, that makes a lot of sense because she was explaining when she was like, her oldest daughter has like a lot of anxiety and is like very like high strung. And that she said, she was explaining to me what she was going through when she was pregnant. And she was like, so it makes all the sense in the world that she would have been feeling that and coming into that sense in there as well. So I never really thought about it, that we all have that mother wound, because how could we not?
Exactly.
Being in there and feeling it in that sense. So very interesting.
So what's interesting is how, we've been living in this patriarchal society that has valued control over others, so there's been a power over others mentality. And that has led to lots of paradigms that we experience in the world, has led to unfortunate paradigms like genocide, has led to enslavement of people, has led to using people for profit, has led to our entire corporate structure that we experience today, has led to, hierarchies of people or caste systems, this is all a product of this need to have control or power over others. And so certainly the woman, in the largest sense, this is like sort of a global pattern, has been the property, of the man, right? So having power over the woman for the greater part of the last 5,000 years. And then men in many parts of the world still have the ability to do with their property what they desire, right? Whatever they feel. So in some parts of the world, in Sharia law, for example, men can kill their wives if they feel like it. They don't really have to have a good reason. So we're still living in that paradigm, and it's still in the space, even though some of us have broken free of that on the outside. In the United States, we've managed to get freedoms. We've managed to get constitutional freedoms. And so legally, we have the right to own our own businesses. We have the right to freely speak. We have many rights that women up until now have not had. So but in other parts of the world, there are still women who don't have external freedoms.
It's so crazy because sometimes I feel like, over here, we're just in such a bubble. We're in such a bubble where it's like, yeah, we do, have these rights and stuff, which really wasn't even that long ago when you really think about it in that sense. But, you think about the other, other countries and stuff where it's like, wow. Like, to me, that's just like crazy.
Well, what's interesting is that all of this people who have been exerting control over women maybe didn't stop to think that they were shooting themselves in their own foot by doing that. Because if you want to have like a progeny, like sons and daughters, or sons, let's say that's your focus, you're going to have to birth that child through a mother, through a woman. So whatever abuse you're perpetrating on the woman is going to be visited upon your children. And so I think this is what the Bible was talking about when it said the sins of the fathers are visited upon the sons. It's like if the father is abusing the mother and then it feels powerful doing that, and then wants his heir to his like throne or whatever, he's abusing the mother. Well, everything he does to the mother gets passed on to the son. And so now the son is born with all the same insecurities as the mother experienced and all the same self-abuse, right? Because we internalize the abuse of our abusers. So we're just perpetuating the model. And you can see like humanity has come to a place where this model is not sustainable. We have people committing suicide in droves. We have people just saying, I don't want to be here anymore. And the way that we look at the mother figure, the way that we look at a woman who's giving, birth to children for humanity, we also look that same way through those same lenses at the greater mother, which is Mother Earth. So what do we do to women? Pillage, get what we want, take. And what do we do to Mother Earth? Pillage, get what we want, take. It's the same paradigm. So we've got to flip the entire script. And that's really what healing the mother wound is about. And the ones who need to do it are the ones who are awake to it and capable of doing it. And that's largely Western women, because Western women have the freedom. We have the external freedom to take this action, to reverse these paradigms and to do deep inner healing. We have not only the awareness of it, that freedom is a right that we have, we also have the tools in our culture and the ability to congregate. And we have the tools to do deep inner healing. We have the ability to speak freely. So we have all the necessary ingredients to do big healing work on behalf of the collective of humanity across the planet. And for women who right now might be still experiencing external control and external abuse, now we have the potential, those of us who are free in this country, in the United States and in other Western countries, we have the ability to step into that role and to heal the ancestral DNA that most of humanity has been suffering from for thousands of years. We can heal that now and change the paradigm.
Which is big, because it has to stop somewhere, because it just keeps going and going and going. So I always found that it was very interesting that my a lot of my clients have this disconnect, and the relationship with their mother is a huge trigger. And I just be looking around like, wait, that sounds familiar. You know what I mean? And it's so many where it's like, that's like their biggest thing, is that with their mom, and just like not being nurtured, as a part of it, feeling like they're never enough. Their mom's always like questioning everything. They can't really get that bond and stuff. And they're like, I'm just ready to block her. I just want to just like delete her, stop talking to her altogether. So I want to kind of like transition over to there. And if you can just kind of help us out with that, whether it's just, sharing like your experience with your mom, and like, what can we do? Like, where is that starting point at? What is that? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so ultimately the work is inner work. It's not about making your mom show up different. It's about going inside, finding these patterns within yourself and changing the patterns. So like the pattern of disconnect, wanting to disconnect from your mom, that's a strategy and a pattern that we've adopted because there's been too much pain, right? If you think about it, there's just everything I just said is so painful, and you could want to like make that go away. So what's the easiest way to make that go away? Disconnect from it, drink alcohol, take drugs, get involved, get distracted, get on social media and just like use up all your free cells looking at that, or playing those little games that people play on their iPhones. All that stuff is a way to just kind of fill up your time so that you don't have to look at deep, painful truths that are happening inside yourself and all around us in our culture. And these pharmaceutical pills, the happy pills, I like to call them, that's another strategy, right? It's like, I'll just take my happy pills and then I'll cope. But as a person who took those for 13 years, I know that on the other side of getting off of them, I could see how it temporarily made me feel better, like put me behind a glass wall so I didn't have to feel the things that were going on in my environment or inside myself. And it didn't do anything to address the actual emotions that were still happening for 13 years under the surface, behind my awareness. All of that was still happening, and not addressing that is what leads to disease. Because when you have a lot of emotional content and a lot of traumas and things that you are not addressing, what happens is that it festers in the body, and it starts to get denser and denser and denser. And the more dense it gets, the more physical it gets. And when it gets dense and physical, it causes illness or disease in the body. And it can cause us to do all kinds of things, right? Like when I want comfort, I go to food, right? I mean, a lot of us do, right? So what we have to do is get into supportive communities where we can talk openly about these subjects, and we can really like open our throat chakras as women and really talk about what we're seeing and what's been going on. And at first it's not very elegant, and you're going to say some things that, you know, are hurtful or painful. And so that's why we want to do it in supportive communities and not with our families, right? Like, because we need to be free to speak. We need to say what's actually on our hearts, and we need to get it off our chests. And we don't want to stay there, because that's the psychotherapy model. That is also a trap. At a certain point, it only takes you so far. And then all you're doing is venting every week in some psychotherapy office. You just vent, but then it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't transform. So the next part you got to go into is the energy. And so you need to be able to look at, like, where are these bigger patterns? Like, if you can understand things at a bigger perspective, you can start to see how it's been, you know, maybe some of the behaviors your mom has come from a sense of powerlessness inherited from her ancestry. You know what I'm saying? It's like a lot of times moms maybe fall into the trap of not being able to connect with your emotional energy deeply. Why would that be? Maybe because in her upbringing, it was not okay to express emotions. I mean, women for generations have been called hysterical and thrown into asylums, you know, and removed from the family system when they had too many emotions. So we have to start looking at the bigger picture and start to heal that within ourselves. And the way that we do that is by looking at the patterns, exposing ourselves to all the different patterns, by talking about them, raising them up, seeing them, witnessing them. That creates realization. And then in the realization is a self-inquiry, like, where am I engaging with that pattern? Because these are collective patterns. So we kind of expose the collective patterns, look inside, see where are you dancing in that dance, and then how can you pull yourself out of that dance and have a whole new relationship with yourself. And as you have a whole new relationship with yourself, you're automatically going to have a new relationship with your mother. You can't not have a new relationship. It's going to change that. It's going to change all your relationships. So ultimately, that's the bigger picture of the work and how it's done. And it is, you know, it's very thick. Like, imagine you're sitting and you're contemplating in a group setting being ignored by your mom. Lots of us have been ignored by our moms. Lots of us have experienced a mom who's like over her limit, can't handle it, and is basically like, I just don't have the resource for this, and turns away when you need her the most. And that creates that feeling of abandonment.
For sure. So personally, like with one of my daughters, my youngest daughter, like she definitely has the father wound. And I seen that from the age of 2. I knew that was going to be there, and she's going to be 16 next month. And we were talking, and she's the one that's with me the most because my older 2, one lives in LA, and then the other one just moved to Hawaii. And then my youngest son, we do every other month. So he's with me for a month and with his dad for a month. So she's always with me, right? And she had went through her own, you know, I don't want to say rebelling, because she just was hurt, and she didn't know how to react to it in a healthy way. But it was all around her dad. And I remember saying to her, I said, if I'm a part of the problem, like, tell me, like, let me know if it's, because I don't want to just put it all on her dad, even though I know that's that bulk. And she was like, no, she said, I mean, the only thing that I could say about you is that you don't tell me, like, I don't hear you like say, like, I love you. She's like, I know you love me, I just don't hear it. And it was like a punch in the stomach, but I knew. And I said to her, and I said, fair enough. And I said, thank you for feeling safe to share that with me. And I said, I never experienced that. I said, I never experienced that, from like my mom. And that wasn't that case. And I said, however, I will do better, and it felt really good because she was honest with me. And because of doing some of this work, like, I get it. And I didn't feel attacked. And I didn't feel like, oh, but I do love you, da, 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 you should know this, or any of that stuff. And it was just like, thank you for sharing that. And I did acknowledge that it's, to show her that it's also what you didn't receive, or you didn't like. I'm not, that's not like, my family's not touchy feely. It's not showing like the emotions. It's not giving you a hug and a kiss. And like, that actually sometimes makes me cringe. I'm like, back up, bro. I don't need you to be touching me like that in that sense. And people are like, what? But it's really more from not receiving that, not, getting that.
Yeah. I mean, when we're not used to receiving a certain level of intimacy and vulnerability, and then that opens up for us, even though it's love and it's beautiful, it can also seem scary. And so it triggers all those old feelings get triggered. It's almost like when you finally get what you always wanted, then it's scary because all the times you didn't get it before, you remember in your body, almost like, even if you don't remember them psychologically, like the emotional energy stuck in your body from never getting that, the hurt feelings, all of that rushes to the surface. And then you can also have fight or flight. Like, you can have like flight syndrome, like, oh, I'm going to like reject you before you reject me, because now that I'm getting this from you, or I'm receiving this closeness, I'm scared that you're going to take it away. So these are all based in the power over system. So if you can just like, even just back up and just see that, like, this is all based on control over. So when people have been raised up the last thousands of years, they've been raised up with this understanding that everything they need is outside themselves, someplace in some other person. And so they need to somehow get that other person to give them what they need. And in that model, you're constantly at the mercy of other people's whims, like whether or not they're able to give you, maybe they don't have the resource or capacity to give you, maybe they just don't want to, maybe they want to control you. So they're not, so there's all these manipulation paradigms inside that construct. So when you want to break free of that, the only solution is to find the power and the source within. You have to find everything within yourself. And in that process, there's a lot of disentangling from all of the relationships you have where you have built them based on this default model of control over, power over. So you can start to see them. When you start to turn into your inner power, you start to notice, oh my gosh, I have so many attachments. Like, I have expectations. I have attachments to people. I'm courted to people. I'm entangled with people. I need them to show up for me this way. I've totally conditional love. You start to see all of those paradigms in all of your relationships. And one by one, you can dismantle that and bring everything inside. And what that does is it allows you in the future, when, as you move along this healing process, it allows you more and more to be interacting with other people from a neutral space and from a totally pure giving space where you don't need them to do something for you in order for you to share your heart. Like, you can be unconditional in your love, because whatever they do isn't going to take away your safety, because your safety is on the inside. And that's really where we need to move to. We need to move to safety on the inside in order to have sovereignty, in order for all of us to be sovereign, in order for all of our voices to be heard, and all of us to be free to follow our own hearts. we have to move into inner sovereignty, inner safety, inner love, inner resource. And from that place, we can all interact with each other much more cleanly, like without so many expectations and entanglements.
Hmm. So when you were saying that, it made me think about like saying something to someone in my life before. I don't remember if it was like I love you or if it was like I miss you. It's one of those things. And I remember like, you're not gonna say it back. You know what I mean? And then and then, this person was like, so if I don't say it back, does that change the way that you felt? I said, wow, okay. You know what I mean? So it brought it back, and it's exactly what you're saying. It's like we say this with this expectation of getting it back, but just if they don't say I love you back, or they don't say I miss you back, or whatever the case is, does that really change the fact that you love them and the fact that you miss them? So when you were
Exactly.
saying that, that's what it made me think about. And I remember saying it, and I was like, damn, that was profound. And then he said it back in that sense, and I was like, wow, though. You know what I mean? I never really thought about it like that. It's like I'm saying this with this expectation of getting it back.
Exactly. And that's called reciprocity, right? Like we all feel like there should
Mm-hmm.
be a reciprocity. But reciprocity isn't decided on the human level. Reciprocity is decided on the spirit level. Like true
Mm.
reciprocity is on a spirit level. That's like why you might be walking down the street and you have like, $10 in your wallet and you see somebody homeless and you go, you know what, I'm going to give this gift because it's just free gift. And you don't expect anything back from that person. You're just gifting it in that moment because it just felt right. Like you got an insight, you saw this person, if you felt it in your heart and you just did it. That's, and then later on, maybe somewhere along the line, then somebody buys you a coffee, at
Mm-hmm.
Starbucks or whatever. And you got like, oh, that's so nice. Thank you. But you weren't expecting that.
Yeah.
And so the universe coordinates reciprocity. So all we do, what we're responsible for is tuning into our inner knowing, which has also been part of the mother wound, because that whole inner knowing and the intuition and our insight and our psychic qualities, that's all been shamed and judged and made us to be afraid of it, when actually that's how we tap in to source to get guidance. I mean, that's how we become
Mm-hmm.
part of the vast machinery of source that creates this like beautiful synchronicity moments. If we're not tapped into that, we miss out. Like we're like this engine trying to live its own, ride on its own track. But there's like this whole setup with the universe that's designed to put us all in the right places at the right time so that we can help and support each other's growth. If we're not tapped into our inner knowing, we can completely bypass that system. And then who knows, maybe the person that really needed us most isn't going to get us in that moment because we were like, I don't know, totally distracted instead of paying attention.
Yeah. I think that's going back to what you were first talking about, how we don't really like talk about it in that sense. I'm like, we're in a world of a society that promotes avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
Of avoiding everything, avoiding the conversation, like you were saying, masking it with eating or like drinking or whatever the case is. I always tease about myself. I'm like, if you're ever on the phone with me and I'd be like, hold on, and you hear me say, can I have a medium fry and a medium Coke, just know I am avoiding the shit out of something, like 100%, because I don't even want that. It's just that's my go-to. So of avoiding something. And then I have to, and I've gotten so much better. Like I have to catch myself, and I'm like, I don't even want that. Like, so I know that I'm avoiding something. And if I'm driving, I'll like pull over and I'll say, wait a minute, what are you avoiding? What's coming up for you that you're trying to shut down? And then I have to really sit with it. I'll be like in the middle of a parking lot somewhere or something, now, because I know what it looks like. The longer you avoid something, something will come along and it'll trigger the shit out of you, or your mom will say something to you or send you a text message, and then you're just spiraling out of control and you're like, what the hell? But it's really because we've been avoiding, and we haven't been like that inner knowing. We haven't been going within and really just checking in with ourselves. I also want to go back to what you said about having the conversation with people in a healthy way and not with like your family and your friends, because that's really not, what is that really doing? I hear that, I get that a lot from people. They look at it like my clients or people I'm having conversations with, they say, you know, but my mom's not there yet. And when I try to talk to her about it, she gets angry or very defensive. And like, how is it that I'm supposed to heal if, you know, they're not willing to like participate? And I just have to say to them, well, that would kind of be really shitty if our healing depended on another person. You know, that's just my belief. I'm like, that would really suck.
Yeah. Thank God it doesn't.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, I'd probably be jacked the hell up for real if I had to wait for some other people. So, I love that you said that, where it's like you emphasize making sure being in an environment that's not like your family and like your friends, and being in this environment where you can be heard and you can express and be able to get that out, but also pointing not to sit in it, because it's easy to stay in it, like you said, and it's become every session you go to is just a venting session, which you ain't getting nowhere. You stay in that loop, in that sense. So
yeah, it's really important to be in the right container, the right community, where it's a mixture of being heard, but also being guided and helped to get out of your own story. Because the story that you tell about someone in your life that you're having a challenge with, that story actually keeps perpetuating the same paradigm. And there's a certain point at which the story becomes a cage that keeps it in place. So I learned this painfully over 20 years of telling stories on myself, and then getting more consequences of the same and going, how come my life keeps showing up this way? Because I'm going into psychotherapy sessions with powerful emotions, telling stories. And that's using the power of the word with emotion to manifest. So what I didn't realize is I was actually a powerful manifester, and using my words and my emotions together unconsciously, I was manifesting things I said I didn't want, like in droves. So I had to start learning how to be judicious and mindful with my language, so that I'm telling a story that's true for me in the moment, but also doesn't lock me into a cage and gives me an opportunity to create what I really want, which might not be happening right now. So the thing about manifesting new outcomes is that, especially as regards to other people, is that, there's a lot of little nuances and boundaries to navigate with that. One of them being, you never want to manifest for somebody else, because a specific person, because that's called a spell, and that's completely out of alignment with sovereignty. You can imagine sovereignty is about free will of the individual to do their soul's curriculum on their own free will and their own free time. And so saying an outcome or manifesting an outcome for somebody else that is not really in right relationship. So what you can do is change yourself. So one thing I realized, and this might help some people, but before, let me just wrap this thought up about the stories, because there's so many threads to how this works that I've learned. It's like, okay, so the story thing, it's important to give yourself grace with stories. So once you've kind of vented the story, then you have to be disciplined with yourself to be like, okay, that's it on that story. Like, I'm not going to tell that story the same way next time. Next time, I'm going to evolve that story to be closer to the outcome I'd like to receive. And there's some language I learned from my mentors, George and Tracy. I learned this languaging that really helps unlock that potential, is to say up until now. So up until now can be right up until this very second. So I could say up until now, I really was angry and I really hated so-and-so, like you could be as like all the way to the darkest pit, right? Like, I just hate this person up until now. That like acknowledges like where you are, and it doesn't lock you in because it's up until now. And then you can say, and now I am in the process. Now I am in the process of seeing this person differently. Now I'm in the process of understanding how I can love this person. Now I'm in the process. You can be in the process of anything. Your brain will accept that you're in the process. And so this is sort of like a a helpful tool that's a little more effective than straight like affirmations, which when you say affirmations and you're not there yet, you don't believe that. Your whole body says that's not true. So this kind of gets you out of that space and into a potential. So why do we want to open up for a new potential? And how do we do that? How can that possibly work? Because people are not fixed in stone. It might seem that way if we keep experiencing the same outcome with somebody over and over and over and over again for a period of years. We might think that person's totally stuck and fixed in stone. If you're experiencing that, then the question is, how is my inner story or my outer story about that person also contributing to keeping them stuck in that story, in that place? How is what I'm doing contributing to that? And then start to change your story, because, you know, everybody's heard of multiple personality people. We all have multiple personalities. The only difference between us and the person who's like got multiple personality disorder is that theirs are like visible. They're really obvious and visible, and they do these really obvious exchanges between the different aspects of self inside them that you can witness. So it's like super exaggerated in a person who has this disorder, multiple personality disorder. But every single one of us have different aspects of personality. And we have primary personalities and we have hidden personalities. We have aspects of ourselves that get lit up when we're around one person, and totally different aspects of ourselves that get lit up when we're around a different person. So when you want to change your relationship with somebody, you've got to change the resentments or the feelings or the stories or whatever that is keeping you fixed in a certain personality exchange with them, and open it up to a new relationship. So when you change your attitude towards somebody and you soften and you have more compassion and you open up and you decide that you understand a little piece of them and you can relax about them, or you can accept them the way they are, or you can even have compassion for them, and you're holding yourself, you're not leaving yourself, you know, you can love yourself through it. You have compassion. Maybe you realize you were holding some big judgments about them. Maybe you can let that go. Your inner work, you soften, you become this other person. Now a different aspect of them meets you when you see them. And this is exactly what happened with me and my mom through the course of doing this work. Like, exactly.
You know, I can see that, you know, and so I tell people when it's about the, you know, like the forgiveness is not about the other person, it's about you, because it does soften you and it makes you look at things from a different perspective, especially if you're holding so much like anger. And I remember, like, for me personally, it was just like more of like that story of like, how could my mom be on drugs? How could you choose drugs over me? And as time went on and I started this journey, it was more like, wow, it really had to have taken a lot to overcome being addicted to drugs. And it's like, wow, that's actually amazing.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
when you look
So
at that,
I get that.
you can be like, wow, my mom is a warrior. She fought for me. She, you know, she fought every day to overcome those drugs because she wanted to show up for me. And she knew in her heart she needed to do that. And those drugs had a lot of power over her. And so she's fighting her inner Goliath, you know, she's like going after it. And that is a whole different lens to put on it that gives her a lot more grace. And then it gives your inner child grace too, because ultimately, what do you want your inner child to feel? Do you want to keep telling the story where your inner child's abandoned? Do you want to keep like sit down at story time and pull out the book with your little 5-year-old and inside of you and be like, hey, little 5-year-old me, guess what? Your mommy abandoned you. You want to like tell that story all the time to your little 5-year-old? Or do you want to say, look, your mommy was a badass. Your mommy loved you so much that she went up against this big monster and she fought it every day to love you. What's the better story? At some point, it doesn't even matter like what's true. How would you even know what was true anyway? Do you have like can you play rewind? Can you like press rewind on your life and see, like watch a movie of your life and specifically see exactly the way it was from every single player and their perspectives and all their hidden agendas and all their everything? Do you have that kind of godlike view into it? Or do you just remember bits and pieces of whatever it is your brain clung to?
Yeah, yesterday, I love that this to show that connection and stuff. So I'm always talking about the inner child. And yesterday I was working with a client, and that client, it didn't have anything to do with the mother wound. It was more of like a relationship with this guy. And I was telling her and talking to her about the little girl that's inside of her that doesn't feel like she's enough. And I said, we all want to be seen, heard, protected, and loved. And I said, and that little girl inside of you is not feeling like that. So this person has kids. I said, let's imagine this child. And I said, you're 4-year-old, I said, there's the 4-year-old. And now you're, saying these certain things to your 4-year-old that now that 4-year-old doesn't feel like you love him, doesn't feel like they're protecting you, and it's doing it over and over and over. And she's getting really emotional. And I said, now that's how the little girl inside of you is feeling. And I said, and you wouldn't want to do that to your child. So why are you doing that to the little girl inside of you? And to be able to have that connection, it was like, oh, having that connection and looking at it as like her child. It's just like, I said, you wouldn't do it to your child. So why are you doing it to you? And that's really what it is. And that's what we do. That's what we do. So of course, that little girl, that little boy inside of us is still not feeling heard or seen or loved or protected, because what are we doing? We, like you said, that story, we're still in it, and just making in there. And it's like, man.
Yeah,
Why
you
are
got
we
to
doing
decide
that
to
in
be
that
the
sense?
better storyteller for your inner child. You've got to take over as the mom, or the dad, as the case may be. But you have to take over and be the one that's reading the story, be the one that's telling your inner child, that's holding them, that's comforting them, and that's painting your life story through a lens that's more empowering. Now, it's like you're not like gaslighting yourself, okay? You're just, there's like so many ways to tell your life story, and you can tell it through the victim lens, or you can tell it through the hero lens. And so you really have that choice. Like, which am I? Am I a victim to my circumstances, or am I a sovereign being that's here learning a bunch of lessons in Earth School, and I'm here to raise up and remember myself through all of this mess? So, how you tell the story is going to determine all the little ones within you, how they feel about themselves, and ultimately how you feel about yourself, because you are the culmination of all of those aspects of you up until now. So you get to retell the story, you get to shift the lens. And as you do that, like I started calling in my book, because I really worked through all these patterns in Love is Fierce, Healing the Mother Wounds. I found all these patterns in the collective that were also in me and in my relationship with my mom. And I started dismantling them one by one inside myself. And I started telling a different story. And instead of telling the story like, oh, well, ever since my dad passed away, my mom and my whole family has been bullying me and ganging up on me, and they're just terrible. I started changing the story. And I owned the piece that I brought. Like, I changed it. I said, I looked at all the different perspectives, and I imagined being all of the different players in my family. And I said, my family is going through such a tumultuous time at the loss of our unconditional love, Rock, my dad. And we're all learning how to bring that level of unconditional love to our family without him here. And each of us misses him so much that it's painful. We're looking for a place to put the pain. That gives everybody grace.
Absolutely.
And then I started changing the story about my mom, and I started saying, because what happened too, and this is really just a clue, but I have this tool that I use in my clients called Gene Keys, GeneKeys.com. And that's Richard Rudd's work. I really love his work. And it's like your astrology plus the I Ching and some other like ancient tools, which are awesome. But what it essentially does is it gives you a picture of your soul's curriculum for this lifetime. It shows you like what you're working on. Like I'm working on the shadow of judgment and lifting it with integrity to understand that everything is perfect all the time. So there's these levels of operation, like we can be at a dense shadow frequency, or we can be up in our gift. And then we can reach for this Siddhic expression, like, you know, what would be heaven on earth? Like what would it be like to feel bliss, or to feel perfection, or to feel delight? You know, we can reach for all that. So what happened was I got my chart and I was starting to understand my chart and my gifts and my shadows. And then I got my mom's, because I was like, I'm going to go see what she's been dealing with. And when I looked at her chart, I was like, oh my God, my mom has been embodying struggle and provocation, like button pushing. Oh my gosh. I start looking at her chart and I'm like, wow, like she is embodying these things. And I looked at the description of a couple of hers, and one of them's like warrior of love. And I was like, my mom is a warrior of love. So I started calling my mom a warrior of love. I was like, okay, my mom is a warrior of love. So if my mom is a warrior of love, how can I perceive her now? And then I started realizing, if my mom is a warrior of love and she has all these, you know, all these shadows in her chart, why would I have picked her? I started going, oh, it's because I needed to learn from her, because we have a lot of struggle on the planet. We have a lot of provocation on the planet. Like this planet has all these shadows. And if I don't know how to navigate them, how am I going to help? And I know I'm here to help. So I started having gratitude to my mom for showing me it from the time I was little about provocation, about like button pushing and how to, like as a coach, I have to push buttons, right? But there's ways to push buttons that get results, and there's ways to push buttons that make people leave.
Yeah.
I've been learning that lesson my whole life. So I'm grateful. It's like, wow, if I didn't have that teaching, how would I do this? So there's that, like that bigger soul perspective, that higher lens I was talking about. However we arrive at that, if we can arrive at that lens, we'll start to see things from 360 degrees. And when you can do that, you're no longer attached to your perspective. And now my mom can show up for me, and we're like, it's clear, like the energy is no longer sticky. It's no longer toxic. It's none of that. It's clear. It's loving. It's kind. It's gentle. And we're both like, we both say, this is what I always wanted. I always wanted to have this with you. That's what we're getting to have now. So it starts inside, you know, as you know, Tisha, it's like, there's no skipping the inner work. That's where it's at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you already mentioned the book, but that's where I was going to go, like, as we wrap it up, to like tell us about the book and like where everyone can get it, and also how else we can support you.
Yeah. So Love is Fierce, Healing the Mother Wound is the book. It's on Amazon. It's also at my website, kerrihummingbird.com, Kerri, hummingbird.com. And I have this series I did with just 17 amazing people for the launch of the book. And it's called The Return of Mother Wisdom, because I really feel like we are at the return of mother wisdom now. We're healing the mother wound within us. It's the return of the wise woman. You know, it's the return of the medicine woman. And I feel that in my whole body when I say that, like chills up and down my spine. It's like, it's time for us to shine our medicine in the world. And the only way for us to do it is to heal ourselves and take ourselves off that triangle of disempowerment, take ourselves off that victim corner, and end up powerful and sovereign and speaking our truth, because the world needs our truth right now. It needs our wisdom. And that's what that summit, The Return of Mother Wisdom, is about. So people can go to motherwoundbook.com, and sign up there and get the whole series. It'll just come to you automatically to your email one day after another.
Nice. This has been so good. I just was reminded of some things and also taught some new things. And it's like, all right, okay. Always doing the work. Always doing the work.
I knew it when I saw you. Yeah, I was like, I met you and I was like, oh yeah, she's in the work.
Yeah, for sure. So this came at a really good time. And like I said, because I was doing what the world says, I was avoiding the mother wound thing, even though I'm having people like, okay, that was great. I love that. But what's up with the mother wound? Like, when you're going to do that one? I'm like, we're going to fall back on that one for a little while. But it was perfect. You know, it's perfect because I'm like, spirit always will deliver exactly what you need in that sense. And in this case, it was like, boom, you were put in my path and we resonated when we had a nice conversation. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. And, you know, I'm going to step back and I'm going to let you do your thing so I can be able to receive, you know, that and look at it from a different way. Because if I'm, you know, teaching and I'm, you know, sharing and putting it out there, I'm not going to say I don't really get anything, because I do in a sense, but nothing like just let somebody else do that so you can fill yourself up and you can see it from a different lens and a perspective. So for that, I am truly, truly, truly grateful for you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tisha.
Thanks for tuning in to Seeing with Your Soul. If something you heard resonated with you, feel free to rate, review, and share with others. If you are looking to go deeper, you can connect with Tisha Michelle on Instagram at Mindset Slayer or visit www.healingalignglow.com.